Welcome back. As we go along here this week, we're seeing a continuation of the global economic meltdown that's been discussed a lot on this show. And it's been a very sort of hectic week in regard to the amount of woo world type of news that has come out all over the world on different mainstream networks. Um, if you check out Paranormal Intelligence Agency on Facebook, you will come across a feed of news that's going on dealing with paranormal. And today we're going to explore what's happened this week. I'm your host, Jack Cary, and you're on the threshold. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Threshold. We're going to have a good show. Some of you may be fans of Expedition Bigfoot, and recently they aired an episode where they made a link between alien intelligence and the Bigfoot species. And I just wanted to show something to you guys because whether they're aware of it or not, all of that information's already been published in my book, Bigfoot Unleashed. It has received really good reviews. And if somebody out there knows the producers or somebody on the show, you might want to let them know. All they needed to do was just read my book, and they could have skipped the entire show up to last night's, debut, Sunday night's debut. So, anyway, I thought that was funny, and I had to share it with you guys. For those of you who have read it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you watch the latest episode, you will absolutely know what I'm talking about. So we continue this economic meltdown. These things can take a while, and it's really the rate of descent that determines the depth of damage, whether it's a airplane or whether it's a society. So a slow grinding down is much preferable to a fall off of a cliff. The grinding down leads to long periods where you basically have to rebuild, and it's a big fight to do so. And people live less better than the people before them for a little while as things get rebuilt and confidence is restored in a new system, etc. The cliff scenario, the black swan scenario, if you will, whereby you get some sort of unexpected event, in this case economic, where there's a radical paradigm shift, and you get that off the cliff moment of total sort of horror and terror in the populace, and that can lead to what I refer to as Mad Max world. I'm going to pull up something here for you guys. Because if you examine all of these different sources that I do. And I'm going to pull this up for you so you can get a very good example of what's coming really to a future near you. And when I saw this, I was like, oh my God. Yeah, guys. And this is coming from asiamarkets.com. And they're not the only news source. If you just type run on Chinese banks, you're going to get a lot. Anyway, in 3 different provinces, there's a complete run on the banks in China. The people are pulling all of their money out because there was a rumor of 3 rural banking chains that were not able to sustain themselves. Now, a run like this on U.S. banks has also been predicted, and that's something that, if that happens, you'll wake up one day and the ATMs won't work. And there's going to be a line 10 miles long to try to get any cash. And what are you going to do on that day? So this is the scenario. There is going to be a squeeze moment where there's enough pressure to cause the change that's going to occur. And those moments are, they're very, very uncomfortable. Anytime you go back and look throughout history, you can see those moments. I've mentioned the 1920 crash and depression. And, guys, there's a big difference between now and back then. And that difference is the fact that we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of $25 trillion of sovereign debt. That didn't exist back then. Imagine what it takes to unwind that kind of debt. In the meantime, it looks like our central bank is stuck in a nasty loop where inflation keeps going up. They're raising rates to try to fight the inflation, making it harder to borrow money. However, while they're doing that, every time they raise the rate, the stock market keeps plunging downward. Now, this is where things get really interesting because all of the voters out there are watching their 401ks evaporate into nothing right before the midterm elections, on top of all of the nonstop stuff that's going on, problems that have plagued this country. You can see the looming disaster. Now, if they stop raising rates, inflation will continue, and it'll continue to hyperinflate. You'll be paying $10 for a loaf of bread. You think I'm kidding? I'm not. I'm not kidding. So that's the scenario you find yourself in, whether you know it or not right now. And, some people have been preparing for a long time. You do that by buying precious metals and, hard assets. I'm not a financial advisor, but I have been a lifelong survivalist. And I can tell you what it's going to take to survive what's coming in any kind of shape at all. And most people just have no idea, and they're just going to get their heads literally taken off. With that, and the fact that all of this goes back to what I've been discussing with these bloodlines that go to ancient times, they're losing their grip, and they know it. And the harder they're squeezing, the more it's all coming out. Like I've said, we live in the age of secrets revealed. That's something that the age of Aquarius has always been called. This is a period when really everything is going to become known to us in time. So it'll be interesting. Will they just try to burn everything to the ground rather than lose? Or will the people at some point have victory over this system and discover a way to live without debt? Because debt is enslavement. And it's been designed to be exactly that in order to harness people to perform labor that others deem necessary. So it's very, very interesting. You are literally, and I hate to say this because it's the name of the show, but you are on the threshold of radical change. So, with that, let's explore a few things that are going on in the woo world. I am going to show you guys some interesting stuff that has been going on here. Oops. It's been some interesting developments. This one is very interesting because Brazil also confirms action on UFOs with experts set to address the government next week. And you can tell that by them running a story like this, you can see other countries beginning to join the conversation, to begin to share the experiences of their military, just like ours. And this conversation is going to continue to burn. I think the people in the Pentagon who were hoping that they could stamp it out by deliberate obfuscation of the issue, which they know exactly that's what they've been doing to the U.S. congressmen and senators. Those people are on the losing side. And it's interesting, the Brazil story, because here's yet another one. Canada plans to share UFO data with U.S. after concerns are raised on nuclear safety. And this is something I've talked about for a very long time. The entire disclosure ball got rolling with the fact that these craft kept hovering over our nuclear installations and messing with our nuclear weapons. That eventually caught the attention of Senator Harry Reid, who then, along with Senator Inouye from Hawaii, really got the ball rolling. And once it was rolling, you can see where we've come to. And there's more and more information coming out. My old producer at Gaia is the new host on UFO Witness on Travel Channel, and I can tell you that she is a top-notch investigator. Those aren't just actors on there. They actually do make an effort to cast people on the Travel Channel that know what they're doing. And she's one of the foremost experts in that field. So I congratulate her on that and being able to go to a network to share her knowledge. So, and her name's Melissa Tittle, for those out there who know. And she produced Ancient Civilizations, which I was on for 3 seasons. Now, we've got some other very interesting stuff going on here. Let me pull up. So, Canada. So, for those of you who haven't or don't watch Expedition Bigfoot, they have been capturing some interesting evidence. Some of that evidence is actually in the form of thermal imaging. And there is articles out there talking about it. Of course, if you watch the show, you'll be able to see the images. It's interesting because, it's clearly an upright creature behind the bush looking at them. These people aren't people that would try to hoax something like that. So, that being said, it's interesting because last night they were talking about the DNA that they collected, that Russell collected their tracker, and the results came back, and they came back human, which I wrote in my book, All Sasquatch Samples Will. And I explained completely why that's the case. And they were shocked by that. And Russell was like, there's no way a human would be doing that. And talking about where they found this hair, right? And it's a long hair, reddish brown and curled and probably tapered at the end. They didn't talk about the morphology, but if a hair is tapered on the very tip, it's never been cut. Because once a hair's been cut, it will never taper again. So if you find a tapered hair, that's a wild hair. That means it came off of something wild. And even if it tests human, you either have a Sasquatch or you have a feral human running around. And I'm a firm believer that there are far more feral humans running around the woods of North America than most people are aware of. So be aware that that is also out there. Let me find this is a fascinating happening that occurred this week. And there's a lot of chatter out there that a big cover up is taking place. We got all kinds of traffic about China having received a signal that they were unequivocal about that came from an alien civilization. They did this on a gigantic radio telescope that they have there, which is not unlike the telescope that was at Arecibo before it completely collapsed. And so that's out there, guys. And there's some the original articles where they're talking about, China has detected alien civilization, were followed by articles talking about how they yanked that news release shortly afterward and have been silent about it ever since. So that's some fascinating stuff. Has China actually made communication with an alien species? That is some interesting stuff. Make sure you come by either Buzzsprout or Amazon Music. And I recently did an interview with one of Australia's biggest podcasts out there, which is Yowie Central. And it was a really good interview. The host is a fantastic host, and we had a great time out there. Let's see here. So if you go to Yowie Central, it's episode 113, and you can listen to that. And we discussed some happenings also in Australia, the Dogman phenomenon in Australia, and how there isn't any oral history to go with the sightings there. And we had a great conversation, so make sure you go by and check that out. Let me see what else is on my woo list for you guys. There is a interesting article about a Navy serviceman who also came forward to report UFO activity. And as you'll recall, most of the witnesses that have been talked about on TV actually are servicemen or women. And here is Navy serviceman reports 5 separate triangle UFO incidents over a Naval Air Station. So, and this is on medium.com. And there's a picture of the gentleman, Angelo Aceta. And he talks about all of his experiences. Quote, I noticed an object in the sky. It was too slow to be an F-18 Super Hornet. I'm very familiar with these planes because of my job. And he goes on to say it was triangular. It had lights glowing below it. They were on each point of the triangle. They were extremely bright and gave off a white glow. He couldn't make out much more as the object was about 500 yards away, but Aceta believed it to be rather large from that distance and approximately 4,000 or so feet in altitude. Its speed was moderate and it moved so smoothly, almost like gliding on water. So it's an interesting article. Are they theirs? Are they ours? We do have the TRB Astra, which is a triangular craft. There have been a ton of black triangular craft spotted all over the world with those lights that are in each corner. We don't know if that's part of the propulsion. But if you were, a CIA super secret TR-3B Astra, would you advertise your presence with 3 bright lights shining down to the ground? It's strange. And would you do it as an alien species unless you just had to for some reason? It's something I've always wondered about with the bright glowing lights on UFOs. It's a really odd thing to do if you're trying to conceal your presence. And obviously they are, because they zoom off every time. And, I've been doing so for a very long time. See if I've got any. And this is fantastic because this is something that's also popping up in the Woo World news feed, if you like. And I'm glad because I consider this to actually be a real problem. So on ND100.com and a few other sources, they're running an article, Aliens Are Among Us and Abducting People from Earth, Professor says, and they're talking about Professor David M. Jacobs, all of whose research I highly recommend. It's 40 years of research on the alien abduction phenomenon. And, he makes a hell of a case. So if you're unfamiliar with that, I would take a look, especially since the recent Pentagon report that was released mentioned a unaccounted for or unexpected pregnancy as one of the side effects of the UFO phenomenon. Yes, that is actually listed. So with that, I will leave it to you guys until next week. As I've said, the Woo World continues to unfold right before your very eyes. You're seeing a non-stop flow of disclosure, of secrets revealed, and of prophecy being fulfilled. And all you have to do really is open your eyes to see it or watch Threshold. I'll see you next week.
You've been watching Threshold with Jack Cary, a Catskill Appalachian Research Collective production. For more information on this program and others like it, remember to like, share, and subscribe to CARC Universal Today. To join the conversation on our Facebook group, become a member of the Catskill Appalachian Research Collective Facebook group. CARC. Relentless.